friends, there's a voice that lives inside your mind, and it speaks with intimate knowledge of your deepest fears. It knows exactly which words will stop you from taking the next step, which thoughts will make you question your worth, which memories will convince you that you're not capable of what you dream. This voice doesn't shout, it whispers. It doesn't attack, it insinuates. It doesn't lie outright, it twists truth into something that paralyzes you. Maybe it speaks to you when you're about to pursue a meaningful goal. Who are you to think you can achieve that? Perhaps it emerges when you're considering a difficult conversation. You'll only embarrass yourself. Or it might surface when you're on the verge of creating something beautiful. Nobody will care about what you make. This voice has been with you so long that you've begun to mistake it for wisdom, for realism, for protection. You've learned to listen to it, to negotiate with it, to let it guide your decisions. But what if this voice, this internal critic that masquerades as your protector, is actually your greatest enemy? What if the very thing you think keeps you safe is the thing that keeps you small? Here lies the profound question that every person must eventually confront. How do we distinguish between the voice of genuine prudence and the voice of destructive doubt? How do we separate legitimate caution from fear, disguised as wisdom? And most importantly, how do we silence the voice that doubts us without losing our capacity for sound judgment? The ancient Stoics faced this same internal battle. They understood that the mind can be our greatest ally, or our greatest saboteur, depending on which thoughts we choose to cultivate and which we choose to starve. They developed specific techniques not just for managing doubt, but for transforming it into fuel for growth. The nature of the doubting voice. The first step in silencing destructive doubt is understanding its true nature. This voice is not your authentic self speaking. It's an amalgamation of past criticisms, societal conditioning, and protective mechanisms that have outlived their usefulness. It's the internalized voices of every person who told you to be realistic, every failure that made you question your capabilities, every moment when you felt small or inadequate. Epictetus, who understood mental captivity intimately through his experience as a slave, teaches us in his discourses, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. But he goes deeper. You are not your thoughts. You are the consciousness that observes your thoughts. The doubting voice is simply one type of thought. And like all thoughts, it has no power over you unless you grant it that power. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his private meditations, reveals his own struggle with this internal critic. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The Roman emperor understood that the voice of doubt is an internal event, not an external truth. It's a mental phenomenon that we can observe, evaluate, and choose to dismiss. The key insight here is this: doubt is not evidence. The fact that you doubt your capabilities doesn't mean your capabilities are doubtful. The fact that you question your worth doesn't mean you're worthless. The fact that you fear failure doesn't mean failure is inevitable. The doubting voice operates on the logical fallacy that its presence proves its correctness, but presence and truth are entirely different things. The Stoic framework for thought evaluation. Seneca, in his letters to Lucilius, provides us with a practical framework for evaluating our thoughts. Every new thing excites the mind, but a mind that seeks the truth turns from the new and strange to the eternal. When doubt arises, we must ask, does this thought serve eternal principles, wisdom, courage, justice, temperance, or does it serve fear? Let me translate this ancient wisdom into a modern context. Imagine your mind as a courtroom where thoughts are witnesses that come to testify about reality. The doubting voice is like a witness with a terrible reputation. It's been caught lying countless times. It has obvious biases, and its testimony consistently leads to wrong decisions. Yet somehow, we keep putting this unreliable witness on the stand and treating its testimony as gospel truth. The Stoic approach is to become a wise judge in this mental courtroom. When doubt speaks, we don't automatically accept or reject its testimony. Instead, we examine it. What evidence does this doubt actually present? Is this evidence reliable? Does this thought encourage virtue or discourage it? Does it move me toward my goals or away from them? Does it make me more capable or less capable? Most importantly, we ask, if I were advising my best friend who had this doubt, what would I say? Remarkably, the voice that doubts us rarely extends the same harsh criticism to others we care about. This reveals its true nature. It's not objective analysis, but self-sabotage dressed as wisdom. Practical philosophy. 4 techniques for silencing destructive doubt. Here are 4 specific mental exercises that will help you distinguish between wisdom and destructive doubt, and ultimately silence the voice that undermines your potential. Technique 1. The evidence auditorn. When a doubt arises, immediately demand evidence. Write down the specific doubt, then below it, list every piece of concrete evidence that supports this doubt. You'll discover that most doubts are supported by remarkably little actual evidence. They're built on assumptions, past experiences that may not be relevant, or comparisons to others that ignore crucial differences in circumstances. Then, write down evidence that contradicts the doubt, times you've succeeded despite similar fears, skills you possess that the doubt ignores, resources and support you have that the doubt overlooks. This exercise reveals that doubt often presents itself as comprehensive analysis when it's actually selective attention to negative possibilities. Technique 2. The virtue filter A. Run every doubt through the 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Ask yourself, if I act on this doubt, am I acting with wisdom? Am I being just to myself and my potential? Am I demonstrating courage or cowardice? Am I showing appropriate temperance or excessive caution? The doubting voice often disguises cowardice as prudence. It presents fear as wisdom and retreat as temperance. But when you filter doubt through virtue, you can distinguish between legitimate caution that serves your highest good and destructive fear that keeps you from growth. Technique 3. The future self-consultation visualizes yourself 10 years from now, having lived according to your doubts versus having acted despite them. Ask your future self, what do you regret more? The risks you took or the risks you didn't take? The times you trusted yourself or the times you doubted yourself? The chances you pursued or the chances you let slip away? This technique shifts your perspective from the immediate discomfort of uncertainty to the long-term consequences of doubt-driven decisions. Your future self rarely regrets courageous action, even when it didn't work out perfectly. But future self consistently regrets the opportunities lost to unnecessary doubt. Technique 4. The voice replacement protocol. When the doubting voice speaks, consciously replace it with the voice of your wisest, most encouraging mentor, real or imagined. What would Marcus Aurelius say about this doubt? What would your most supportive friend say? What would you say to someone you deeply cared about, who had this same doubt? This isn't positive thinking or self-deception. It's recognizing that you have access to multiple internal voices, and you get to choose which one guides your decisions. The doubting voice has been loud for so long that it seems like the only voice but it's actually just one perspective among many, and often the least reliable one. The advanced teaching, transforming doubt into fuel. There's a deeper level to this wisdom that advanced practitioners can access. Once you've learned to silence destructive doubt, you can actually transform it into fuel for growth. Every doubt reveals something important, either a skill you need to develop, a fear you need to face, or an assumption you need to challenge. Marcus Aurelius understood this principle. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Doubt can become your greatest teacher if you learn to interrogate it properly. Instead of letting doubt stop you, let it inform your preparation. Instead of letting it paralyze you, let it motivate you to develop greater competence. When doubt says, "You don't know enough," it might be pointing to genuine knowledge gaps that you can fill. When it says, "You might fail," it might be encouraging you to develop better contingency plans. When it says, "You're not ready," it might be highlighting specific skills you can practice. The key is to extract the useful information from doubt while rejecting its ultimate conclusion that you should give up or avoid action. Doubt often contains seeds of wisdom wrapped in packages of fear. The Stoic learns to harvest the wisdom while discarding the fear. Seneca's insight on mental fortification. Seneca offers us a profound insight about building mental resilience. Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, "Is this the condition that I feared?" Instead of avoiding situations that trigger doubt, deliberately seek them out in small, manageable doses. Present that idea in the meeting. Share your creative work with someone whose opinion matters to you. Take on a challenge slightly beyond your current comfort zone. Each time you act despite doubt and survive, or even thrive, you build evidence against the doubting voice's credibility. This is mental fortification through experience. Every time you prove doubt wrong through action, you weaken its future hold on you. Every time you discover that the consequences of courage are better than the consequences of hesitation, you build a stronger foundation for future bold action. The liberation from self-imposed limitations. Epictetus taught that we are not imprisoned by external circumstances, but by our thoughts about those circumstances. The doubting voice is perhaps the most sophisticated prison we create for ourselves. It doesn't require external bars or guards because it convinces us that the prison is for our own protection. When you learn to silence destructive doubt, you discover something remarkable. Most of your limitations were self-imposed. Most of your barriers were mental constructs. Most of your fears were phantoms that dissolved when exposed to the light of honest examination and courageous action. This doesn't mean becoming reckless or ignoring genuine dangers. It means developing the discernment to distinguish between thoughts that serve your growth and thoughts that impede it. It means trusting your capacity to handle challenges, learn from mistakes, and adapt to circumstances. It means believing that you are more resilient and capable than your doubts suggest. The person who has learned to silence destructive doubt has not eliminated uncertainty from their life. They've eliminated the paralysis that uncertainty used to create. They still feel fear, but fear no longer makes their decisions. They still encounter challenges, but challenges no longer seem insurmountable. The wisdom of self-trust. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, confine yourself to the present. The doubting voice almost always operates in the future tense, imagining disasters that haven't happened, failures that haven't occurred, rejections that haven't materialized. It rarely acknowledges your present capabilities, resources, or support systems. When you ground yourself in the present moment and honestly assess what you're actually capable of right now. Not in some hypothetical worst-case scenario, but right now. You often find that you have far more strength, wisdom, and capability than doubt suggests. The Stoic practice is to trust yourself enough to take the next right step, even when you can't see the entire staircase. It's to act on your values and goals, even when doubt questions whether you're worthy of success. It's to treat yourself with the same compassion and encouragement you would offer to someone you love who is facing the same challenges. In essence, the ancient Stoics teach us that doubt is not insight. It's often the absence of insight. It's not protection. It's often self-sabotage. It's not realism. It's often pessimism masquerading as wisdom. The voice that doubts you is not the voice of truth. It's the voice of fear. And like all fears, it loses its power when you face it directly, examine it honestly, and choose to act despite its protests. Here's the question I leave you with, fellow seekers of wisdom. What would you attempt if you knew the doubting voice was lying to you? What dreams would you pursue if you trusted your capabilities as much as you trust your doubts? Are you ready to silence the voice that keeps you small and listen, instead to the voice that calls you toward greatness? May the light of wisdom illuminate your inner citadel. Until next time.